have Kleenex, because since there's nobody in the studio today, we're rocking out on some pranayama. And that way I won't feel insecure about blowing all over everyone, sending aerosols throughout the room. But the pranayama is particularly important. I've really been impressed by this book I've been reading called Breath, something lost art of an old science or something like that, but by James Nestor. And it supports, he will say, you know, like the yogic breathing, the Buddhist prayer mantra, that prayer and the way we should breathe are tightly connected. He looked at Buddhist prayers, particularly the Om Padma, forgotten it, Padme Hum, yeah, and the Rosary, and some Native American prayers and African prayers and Muslim prayers. And he was saying they actually slow the breath down so that you end up having 5.5 breaths. Well, your breath is about, inhale is about 5.5 seconds, exhale is about 5.5 seconds, somewhere in that range. And that you end up having 5.5 breaths per minute. It's so wild that if your inhale and your exhale are roughly 5.5 seconds, and that moves you to 5.5 breaths per minute, that's ideal. That usually in our normal day, we end up doing 10 to 20 breaths a minute, and that your health improves the slower you can, the more you can slow your breathing down. So I love that. So let's take a good seat. And we'll work on that. So first start as you come into the body. And bring your awareness to your breath. Just notice how it's just breathing normally this morning. And then begin what some of us call box breath. It's not an official pranayama, but it's a way of easing the breath. And I've found that if I start with smaller numbers, and as the muscles around the lungs, all the intercostal muscles and the lungs themselves begin to relax, you can increase it. A lot of times our ego says, oh, I want to start out with a big number first, but no one knows what your number is. So it's just you judging you or me judging me. So start out, try in for 3, hold for 3, out for 3, hold for 3. If that's very easy, if you feel like you're gasping for breath, drop down to 2, 2, and 2. You'll relax pretty quickly, only a couple of rounds, and as long as we don't force it too quickly. Then if 3, 3, 3 is easy peasy, go 4, 4, 4, 4. So in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. Now you can do 4 slow counts, or if you want to try the 5, 5, 5, 5, and 5, that actually lowers the number of breaths per minute. So the 4, 4, 4 works pretty well because it works out almost to about 5.56. I don't know the math, but it's very even. And even inhale, even holds, even exhales. It's about stability. You think about the box. It's a very stable, and in like art history, as we learn to look at works of art, when we see square configurations like people put in even boxes, it's kind of a dull composition. The triangle is a much more dynamic composition because of all the diagonals. But in the breath, we want to move to, I don't know if I'd call it dull, but the stable, very stable. So in for, just make each number on the sides of the box the same. And you move to the Ujjayi sounded breath, where you constrict the back of the throat slightly, so you hear the breath coming in and out through the nose. The next time you exhale, and don't hurry there, just let the breath move through there. Come back to your normal, easy breathing, no efforting, no structure. And I say this a lot, but just keep in mind that working with the breath is like shaping the breath. It's like if you've made bread and you knead the bread, it's not very pliable in the beginning, but you keep shaping it. If you push it too hard or do it too much, the bread doesn't come out with the right texture. Same thing with clay. Clay's hard and cold when you begin. You just keep working it and getting it soft in the hands. It's the same thing with the breath. So let's do some Kapalabhati. Kapalabhati is the forceful exhale, passive inhale. Like when you cough, since there's no one here, I will cough. If you cough, the diaphragm pulls back in sharply, and you do a passive inhale, which means you don't even notice. What you don't want to do is saw the breath. You do not want to go, or you'll pass out pretty quickly, need the brown bag, you'll lose too much. And if you find yourself getting, this is skull shining breath, that's the translation of it, and you might feel a tiny bit tingly at the crown of the head or the top of the head. You don't want to feel dizzy. So we'll start it slowly, and then you can work it faster as you wish. So as you inhale, place your hands on the floor, blow it all out through the mouth, pull it all out, pull the belly button up and in, and then begin through the nose. The low belly, right at the belly button, is drawing in sharply with each exhale. And then release, inhale. Again, blow it all out. And slowly sip the air in as you sit up. And breathe normally. Now the alternate nostril Kapalabhati, it's even more forceful. So I find Kapalabhati strong, but one of the things you do want to do, it's a form of pratyaloma, is that you're constricting the in and the out, and it kind of moves the energy. Prana is the Sanskrit word for energy or breath, life force or breath. So it moves it differently. So having a Kleenex nearby is good because it will begin the river of phlegm pretty quickly. So you can either use just your index finger and your thumb, and you're on either side of the nose, and I move up and down rather than back and forth. The classic way is to have of your right hand, the index finger and the middle finger down, and then the ring finger and the thumb are on either side of the nose. So I'm switching to my real right hand as opposed to my mirrored right hand. So inhale both nostrils and blow out the right first for the morning, the sun channel, and then close the right and blow out the left. And blow out the right. And you do this enough, you'll start to feel the abdominal muscles, they'll start to fatigue after about the third round of this. You're sharply moving the abdominal muscles in. And the next time you blow out your right nostril, inhale, blow it all out. Slowly sip the air in through the nose as you sit up and breathe normally. It really starts to move the energy around. And again, so you can do it the slower path. It really, there's no advantage one way or the other to go fast or slow. Sometimes your energy is picking up and you want to go a little faster, but if you get confused, just slow it down a little bit. It takes a little practice. So inhale, cleansing breath, and begin. And the next time you're out the right, release, inhale, big, full inhale, hands on the floor, blow it all out, and then slowly sip the air in as you sit up. By this third round, should feel pretty skull shiny, a little tingly, and also the core, the abdominals, right from the lower ribs, the diaphragm, and the core should start to feel a little fatigued. And if they don't, it may mean that you're relying on a little bit too much chest breathing. So it just takes a few techniques. And you guys, if you have any questions, pop on and ask. No one's here, it's just for us. All right, oh, now my legs are permanently bent. Straighten them out. Shake them off. And lean back a bit. Separate the feet about mat width apart, wider than hip width apart. And just drop the legs to one side and walk around with the hands and look over your shoulder. Inhale your way back to center and drop them over to the other side and look around. And you'll start to crawl yourself forward and just continue back and forth. It's kind of like a form of seagrass, but not on the back. Just stretching out a little bit. Oh, nothing too vigorous or intense, just a gentle twisting, stretching. Oh. And then come to work the hands, either with the ball or a massage. And if you're working the ball or the spiky ball, then press. And the legs can do whatever you want them to do. Work your hands. Oh, my thin arm eminence is feeling better. So I injured my thin arm eminence. It's this little heel of the right under the thumb. I was making a new slip cover for the couch and I just kept pulling things and was basting. And so this action, I just kept doing that. And that's caused me not to be able to get this, like this hand is not gripping well. It's better. But the spiky ball helps a lot to rub it out. Kind of a cousin to carpal tunnel. It's a repetitive stress, which I have found that anything after about the age of 45, most of what we get is in the neighborhood of repetitive stress injuries. Changing hands or alternating back and forth as you wish. You guys know how to do this. So just sitting in the same position in front of a computer can cause a repetitive stress injury. Doing it over. Hammering, where I find the worst, because I don't do it anymore, like rolling, doing a paint roller. My shoulder just drops off. It hurts so bad. Oh. Work that out just a bit. Okay. Shake off the hands. Swing around, hands and knees. Oh, let's do some cat-cows, as big as you want, as small as you want. Oh, stretch it out. Oh my gosh. Back and forth, and then maybe circles with the hips one way, and then the other. It's kind of warming up, just as we warm up the clay, warm up the breath. We're gentle about warming up the body, not trying to hold anything too long, doing any little stretches as we need. While we're here, take a wide child's pose. I'll face, knees wide, wide apart, toes together, and stretch out. So walk the fingertips out, perch up on your fingertips, lift your palms, lift your wrist, lift your elbows, and micro bend your elbows out to the side. And think about lifting your elbow tips up, but at the same time, the inner armpit, the inner shoulder is moving up. So if you move the inner shoulder up too much, the elbow tips go down towards the floor. If you lift the elbow tips too much, the inner arm rolls in. So you find that sweet little place in the middle. And if your shoulders are tight, walk your hands wider than the shoulders to give yourself space. And then from the fingertips, draw all the way up through the arms into the shoulder socket to hug the shoulder blades on. Just that, it's a strength posture, an active child's posture. If the head's on the floor, just lift it just enough to clear and walk over to the right. Slide your right hand, bend the right elbow, slide the right hand back by your right knee, and push into the hand so the sits bone moves closer to your heel, and walk your left fingertips out more. Big side stretch. Oh. Inhale back to center. Notice the difference between the two sides, and perch up again. Engage the hands, lift the wrist, lift the elbows. You micro bend the elbows and slightly lift them to the ceiling. At the same time, the inner armpits move up. So there's a little push-pull in that movement. Keep that and walk over to the left. Slide your left hand down, back, bend the left elbow. Left hand pushes pretty close to the knee. Push into the earth so the right sit bone moves closer towards your right heel as you're walking the right fingertips away from you at a diagonal. Oh. And then breathe. The side ribs, tricep, armpit. Oh. Big stretch. Inhale back to center. Whew. Come up. All right. Come into an easy dog and walk it. Pedal it, walk it, move it. Oh. On your next exhale, walk your hands back to your toes, forward bend at the back of your mat. And then do some easy bend stretch. Nothing too intense, a little bend, a little stretch, a little bend, a little stretch. It can be up on blocks. You can have your hands on the back of the couch, on a chair, if you want to be in half forward bend. With a little bend, a little stretch. You can also do this with the elbows on the thighs. So you're in half forward bend and a little bend stretch here without moving the back. So the back's not rounding and straightening. It's pretty much neutral back. And the next time you inhale, hands on your hips, soften your knees, shrug your shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones. Use the legs to hinge from the hips, press down as you rise up. Oh, nice. Interlay the hands behind the back. Just do a standing back bend stretch. All right, work the feet. And then begin to press at the base of each toe. Then start to work into the arch. Soft part. To the back of the heel. And begin to roll and scribble and do what your foot loves. I used to do this only with the lacrosse ball, the softball, the smooth ball. And now that I've moved to the spiky balls, I just don't get the same buzz with the smooth ball anymore, although it's still effective. I just love all those little pokes and prods from the spiky ball. Change sides if you haven't already. Mm, mm, mm. This is so good for the feet. And the feet, I've found, respond very quickly. You can ignore them. Other parts of the body, you have to slower and slower to open them or strengthen them. But the feet, if you do the toe torture where you tuck the toes and sit on them like the Japanese tatami room waitresses, hurts a lot in the beginning. You do that for a couple of days and the feet just respond very quickly. Even in my ancient, aged state, they get happy faster. And as we age, not that any of you are older, old everybody right now in this, but working the feet is super, super important because they're what hold us. And I've talked about this before, but you'll see really old people, sometimes people our age, my age, maybe even your age, they walk with this sort of singular foot. The foot doesn't roll through when they walk. They kind of take a step and they walk like that. And that gives them that sort of toddler look, right? The old toddler. And that affects your balance. So the more the feet are flexible and moving, the more you'll have balance as you age. Step to the top of your mat, please. Lift all 10 toes. Press the four corners of the feet down, the ball of the foot nearest the big toe. Energetically lift your inner arch, tack your inner heel down. From there, fan from the inner heel to the ball of the foot nearest the baby toe. At least in your imagination, lift your outer arch and tack your outer heel down. Four corners, like four wheels on a car for each foot. And then keeping all of that, press your shins energetically forward, micro-bending the knees. Hug the heels towards each other energetically, not move them, but hug them so you feel the inner thighs working. Then keeping that, here's another thing, kind of like with the arms. As the heels are moving in, the outer shins are moving back, your inner thighs are moving back wide and apart. Again, you have to balance it because if I go too far back, then the knees will roll in. If I go too far this way, I do too much of an outer rotation. And then bring it all together. The tailbone brings it on home. As the tailbone moves down energetically, you press into the feet and rise up. The toes slide along the floor. And the low belly tones now zip the xiphoid to tailbone and rise up. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale halfway up. Keep the legs strong and connected. If you lose that, the best way I know to do that is to just start to lift the toes again, pull the four corners of the feet like you're pulling the neoprene dive suit up the legs, and begin again each time. And on your next inhale, rise up and exhale. Take your strap. Take a fairly wide so you can pull it down as a lat bar. And where your elbows are in space depends on your shoulders. So you'll work them eventually to out about shoulder level, but pulling them in slightly gives you a little bit more space to pull the head of the arm bone into the shoulder socket and the shoulder blades down the back. So pull down, pull back, and then pull the bottom ribs in. So often what happens as soon as I start to do an upper back bend, we pop back. So inner thighs are still moving back, tailbone down, and lift up as you curl back. Lift up, press up more. From the core of the pelvis, the energy is moving way down through the legs strongly. The legs govern the back, and the tailbone's lengthening mightily as you curl back. Oh. and release, shake off. Now take it behind you. So we did an interlace the hands, but this time your thumbs may touch or barely touch or just be a few inches away from each other. If the shoulders are tight, widen that out a bit, make a little more space. However, if you go too wide, what happens, it's not bad. Actually, it's fine, but keep it as narrow as you can without feeling any pinch. And then steady the feet, four corners. So as the heels hug towards each other, the upper inner thighs move back wide and apart. Oh, and then bow forward. Oh. Knees can stay bent, or you can straighten them if that feels good, as long as you don't feel a lot of pull on the low back. And then just tilt one way, to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left. Not a big tilt, just looking over the shoulder. Come to center, use the legs, strong in the legs, push down as you hinge from the hips to come up. As long as we're working the shoulders. Put the strap over your right shoulder and show you from the back. Yep, right shoulder. Then you'll work and kind of work the hands towards each other. So on one side, I can actually touch my fingers, maybe today. On the other side, not at all, not anywhere close. This elbow, this is my tight shoulder. It's actually the upper side that's the tight problem. But I'm moving it up, and I might even take the hand to help move it up towards the head, then start to crawl the hand up the back. Oh. Feet a little bit wider than hip width, bend the knees so they're right over the ankles, and just bow forward at the hips. So you're not coming all the way down. You're like those little birds in the tourist shop, the little glass birds that tilt down to get the water. So you're just bending from the hips, up and down. Oh, and release. Shake it off. Side B. And the hands, the top arm is pulling up as the bottom hand is pulling down. So we do this sometimes with a stretchy band that actually forces us to use the muscles slightly differently. So here, just pull it in. Now the tendency here, as soon as, again, we're lifting the upper back, opening the chest, the bottom ribs tend to spread out, and that softens the core. So zip up xiphoid to tailbone, drop the bottom ribs down, and then lift the heart. Push your head into your hand, one of your arm or your hand as you open up, and then do the tilty whirl thing. Halfway down or a quarter of the way down, just back and forth. And then release. Ooh, shake it off. Lose the belt for a while. Step to the top of your mat. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, bow forward. Oh, my shoulders feel loose. Stretch the right leg back, straight leg lunge. Says you need them. We can always, placing the hands on a chair, the couch, the back of the couch, the seat of the couch, begin to straighten and bend. Straighten and bend. You can bend the back knee. It's okay to keep the back leg straight, but I find sometimes it makes me use the back quadricep, the back thigh muscle a bit more to bend it. And then push off, come forward, step the other leg back. Bend and straighten and bend. Light on the fingertips, or play with your balance, lift the head of the arm bones so we're not rounding down. Or keep the fingertips on the block or the floor, but light. They're just there to keep you from tipping over to the side, not to hold you up. The tendency is strong within me to do this, and then the legs just can Wiggle back and forth. I feel it. And push off. Stand forward, draw in. Oh. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, release the arms. Step the legs wide apart. Have the blocks available to you should you need them. Feet are parallel and even slightly turned in. You take as wide a stance as you're comfortable with, and then go just a tiny bit wider. Work the four corners of the feet here. The tendency is to roll to the inner edge. So notice, are you more weighted on some of the corners of the feet than others? So you particularly work the outer edge of the feet. Lift all 10 toes. Press the ball of big toe ball of the foot down. Lift your inner arch a lot. Press the inner heel. My dance teacher used to say, imagine that you have wet paint on your inner arch and you do not want to get it on the floor. That always helped me as a child anyway, remember to lift my arch. Then from the inner heel, span out and tack the ball of the foot nearest the baby toe down. Now my baby toe goes down to the floor as well, but I'm still trying to lift it even though it looks like it's totally on the floor, which it is. Then energetically lift the outer arch. I don't have much of an outer arch, but another way of thinking of that is pulling the baby toe ball back to the outer heel. It's like you're trying to shorten the sides a bit. Then tack your outer heel down. Hands on your hips and your hip crease. Ooh, and bow forward. Come to your blocks. Ooh, I feel this in the sit bone and the hamstring attachment. What's going on? So micro bend your knees. Hug your heels towards each other. Inner thighs move wide back and apart. Tailbone lengthens, even though, so right now the tailbone's lengthening to the wall straight behind you, and then down, and see if it can bifurcate to each inner heel. And you come down as far as is comfortable. You can stay in the right angle where your back is roughly parallel to the floor, or you can keep coming down, lowering the blocks. If it's feeling easy for you to place the hands on the floor, do that. And then lengthen. So if the back is really rounded, come up on a block or two so that you can lengthen. Once you've extended long, then the upper body can round a bit. If you're already down, turn your fingers to face behind you and walk them underneath you, like you're trying to reach the wall behind you. Oh. Do a nice big deep stretch there. Micro bend the knees a little bit, hug the heels towards each other. Inner thighs move back wider up and apart. In, back, and apart. Okay, come back. Ooh, to regular heel toe, the feet in, and shake it off, and just stand for a moment. Take a wide stance again. Turn your left toes towards the short edge of the mat. Back foot. So the back foot traditionally is the baby toe side of the foot is parallel with the short edge of the mat. But I find with my hips, if I turn the toes in a bit more, take the heel out. So it's not 45 degrees, but I don't know my degrees once I get past, well, that's 90, 45. So it's more like about 80 degrees turning it in. So if 90 is parallel to the back edge of the mat, you're just turning in it a bit. And again, the back foot here, the arch wants to collapse. So put the wet paint on your inner arch and lift it up and in. Hands on your hips, scissor the legs towards each other to stabilize the muscles, then bend the front knee right over the ankle. Shoulders right over the hips, stretch the arms out. Turn your palms up and slide your shoulder blades down the back and hug them onto your back. Turn your back palm down, let it slide down your leg and reach for your inner right thigh. Lift the inner right thigh back and up, and then turn the front palm up to come into reverse warrior. Bend the front knee a little bit more as you're pulling the back thigh away. Oh, nice. And inhale, come back to center. Straighten both legs. turn both feet in. If you need a break, I just like to come in for a moment, step it out, and then step it back out. Otherwise, hold the wide stance if that works for you. Now turn your right toes out. Back foot either parallel with the back edge of the mat or just a tiny bit turned in. Lift your inner arch. Put wet paint on your back foot there, on the arch of the back foot. Press down through the four corners of the feet, particularly working the outer edge. Scissor the legs together, hands on the hips. Keep that and bend the front knee just over the ankle. Keep scissoring in, but then as the inner thighs move in, back, and apart, the tailbone lengthens. That's a way of pushing back out. So you don't want to only pull in. You pull in first, then pushing out with the pulling in together. Again, it's that balance, just like with the arms, elbows up, inner arms in. It's the Goldilocks place. Stretch the arms out, a shoulder height, turn the palms up. The back hand then turns back down. Reach for the inner edge of the back leg, pull it up and apart, and then stretch the top arm forward. Bend the front knee a little bit more. As soon as this arm goes up, the tendency to straighten-ish the front leg is very strong within us. On the front foot, hug the front heel towards the midline, towards me, if you're side to side to me, but if your front foot is your right foot, move it towards the left so that you're not popping your hips back. You want to pull them in and then release. Come into standing. Slide your way to the floor. Do a seated twist. Wow. Yes, it's a Lord of the Fishes pose. Don't know why, it's just what it is. It can be done with one leg straight, the other one bent, and how close this heel is to your bum, really, that's your volume control. It depends on what this knee wants to do. So the foot can move out a little bit farther or come close, depending on what you want. That's stage one. If you want a tiny bit more, the straight leg moves across the body and you cross the bent leg over. Then you sit up to it, pull the knee into the chest and across the body and sit up to it. Take the twist slowly. The head's the very last thing to go. The other way you can do this is bend the bottom knee and come into a full Matsyendrasana here. So at any stage along there, you still get the benefits of the twist. So inhale is a lengthen, tailbone moves down, crown of the head moves up. Exhale, the ribs slide away from your, towards the bent legs, the top leg side. So in this case, if your right knee is up, you're turning towards the right, and then the arm just keeps pulling you around. The back hand perches on the floor behind you, bend the elbow and pull it in towards the back body. And with each inhale, keep lengthening, and exhale, a tiny bit more twist. Inhale, length, exhale, twist. Oh. Then once the torso has moved all the way around, the head can very elegantly turn to the right, but not that far. It's more with the eyes. Move the eyes all the way to the right. Good stretch for the muscles around the eyes. Inhale, come back to center. Stretch both legs long. And then start side B. So you can start regular here, and a nice stretch here. You can cross over. In any case, wherever the bent leg is, that foot solidly on the ground. Often as it gets harder, we tend to roll up and off. So if the bent leg foot, in this case your left foot probably, cannot get all the way four corners of the foot to the ground, then move it back a notch to where you can. And then if you want the full stretch here. Oh. So take the stretch slowly. You guys know the drill. Inhale first for length. Exhale, then the ribs move. Head stays in line, chin stays in line, with the sternum, the breastbone. Inhale, lengthen, tailbone down, crown of the head up. Exhale, just the ribs. Just a smidge. So each breath is a little bit more rather than twist it all the way off too fast. The strain happens there. Oh. You keep pulling the bent leg across the midline. Feel that nice stretch in the hip flexors. The back hand perches up, the elbow bends in. You can perch it up on a block as well, or a blanket or a bolster. And then you can gently turn the head over the shoulder, but not so much that you feel a crick. It's more important to take the eyes way over. Look, is the eyes behind your head kind of a thing. Oh. Take another breath. Inhale, lengthen, and exhale, release the twist. Nice. Oh. Shake it off. Right, the rest of it's going to be on your back. Have your strap near you. Have a block near you for supported bridge at the end. And of course, for final relaxation, you're welcome to do regular Shavasana or do the supported fish where you have the block like this in a T position, especially if you feel like you're going to be hunching over a computer. It's a nice thing to do, but we've got more to do before we get there. So slide all the way on your back. Oh my gosh. All right, knees bent, feet on the floor, robot arms, bend your elbows. Use the elbows to push down and lift one shoulder, snuggle it under you, lift the other one, snuggle it under you, and tack the head of your arm bones down. So you kind of have a nice arc. Your low back curve is, and then pull the void down to the tailbone, or another way to say that or think about that is to take your side ribs back towards the floor without completely smashing the low back curve. You'll reduce it slightly, but you're just countering that, pushing against it. All right, put the strap across a foot, any foot. I'm going to start with my left leg. Do a double wrap so you can slide down and bring the elbows back to the floor, because otherwise what happens when we reach too high, you're pulling the head of the arm bone away from the shoulder socket, and this becomes then a shoulder strain activity. So we want this to be in the legs and the hips. So you snug the shoulder blades under you and press the elbows, the back of the upper arms into the earth a little bit. And just come into a regular, you may not feel any stretch here. And breathe. The other leg, my right leg, can stay bent, or it can straighten through this process. It will straighten eventually. Whatever it does, it's still at attention. It's not rocking off to the side or dropping yet until we want to intentionally do that. So from here, if you take both straps, if you have your strap around your left foot, then hold the strap, both straps with the right hand. The left thumb then moves into the left hip crease, and the left palm pulls the outer left hip back away from the ribs. Now pull the strap a bit more, so you're pulling the toes towards the top of your head. And notice the low back curve will completely disappear. So back off a little bit, keep taking the top of your left thigh away from the ribs, and then see if you can get your low back curve back. You have to use some core work here. Then with both straps still holding, the right hand holding both straps, bend your right knee, lift your hips just a smidge and bump them over to the left if your left leg is straight, and then roll to your right side. The leg is parallel with the floor. Don't let it come all the way to the floor. Have it just hip as high as your hip. The leg is roughly parallel to the floor. You can either, if you're near a wall, push the foot into a wall, or rest it on something, a block, part of a chair, anything. It feels really good to have it resting there. Then open, press into your right elbow and lift your shoulder blades and try to come back down on your left shoulder blade. It tends to get light. The upper body is twisting towards the left as the leg and the lower belly are moving towards the right.
the bottom leg, in this case my right leg, is bent, you can leave it there, or if it's accessible to you to take hold of the top of the foot, do that. We have a stretch for that later anyway, not a problem, but if you can grab hold of it, fine. If not, just bend it and move the knee back. Both shoulder blades as even as possible on the floor, but definitely your right shoulder blade, my right shoulder blade is much heavier. I'm working the left shoulder blade back. Nice side twist. And then inhale. Oh. Come back up. Release the strap. Stretch both legs out. Both arms overhead. See if there's a difference. Oh. And come back to side. Again, one strap in each hand. Do a double wrap. And slide the hands down your strap so you can snuggle the shoulder blades under your back. The elbows are on the floor, upper arms on the floor. Just pause here a minute. You don't have to come to max stretch. You're feeling kind of a gentle, sweet stretch, nothing too intense. You could hold this for quite a while. Just, I'm feeling a tiny bit of stretch up the back of the hamstring, but not intense. Just settle, get your low back curve. Then take both straps in the opposite hand. So my right leg is up, the left hand holds both straps. Pull the left elbow back to the floor. Then the right hand snuggles into the right hip crease, pulls the right hip away from the ribs, as now the opposite hand, the left hand, is pulling my right toes towards my head. But the hand is resisting, so there's resistance in there. Resistance here is not futile. Very important. And notice the closer you pull your leg towards your head, the more the low back curve completely deserts you. So see if you can keep some remembrance of the low back curve to give the leg up a little bit, not so close to the head. So I can pull this much closer to the head, and it's not a bad thing, but I'm just totally rounding the back. And that's an okay thing, but right now we're working deeper into, since we're into sort of resistance. I know all your guys' politics, so we're into resistance mode in politics. I'm gonna play a little, the beauty of resistance. Our resistance helps us open more. Body pays attention there. And then press into your bent leg, the down leg, the left foot in my case, bump the hips over towards the lifted leg, in my case to the right, then roll to the side. Now what I get here is I'm close enough to the wall that my leg is pressing against the wall, and I'm telling you, this feels so good that if you can get near a wall or the back of a couch or something that won't slide across the floor, it feels really good to press the foot into the wall. Then you can take the outer hip away from the ribs. That's deep. I love, love, love that. Then my left hand has nothing to do, so the left shoulder can relax. You can either just bend the bottom leg and take the knee down towards the short edge of the mat, or take hold of the top of the foot. Woo. The hip wants to roll up. The right hip wants to roll up. So keep taking the top of the right thigh away from your belly, even if your hand does it, or you can do it energetically, muscularly, to pull it away. Holy gamoly. And then inhale your way back to center. Shift back. So here's a way to do the top of the calf stretch without straining the knees. So if your both knees are bent, then you bend the bottom leg and drop it down. You don't have to hold it, you can just drop it down. So to turn, if you're looking, it looks like this. So I'm just dropping one knee down, stretching it towards the short edge of the mat, and the other one is straight. One of my teacher trainer students taught me this weekend. I love this. If you can't hold the foot, that's fine, but you can still get plenty of stretch without it. And then that may increase your low back curve, slide your shoulder blades on the back, and then pull xiphoid to tailbone. Just reduce the low back curve slightly by lengthening your tailbone and dropping your side ribs to the earth. When you do that, the down leg, in my case, the left one, the knee will start to move. And that's okay if the knee is, it doesn't have to be on the floor, but you're reaching it both the outside of your left knee to the floor, if that's your underbent leg, and then the left kneecap moving towards the short edge of the mat. And release. Do side B. So it can fold out this way wherever you can get. You keep working the knee down so it's straight-ish, but that's where you're going. If you're having knee issues, then you just adjust, but feel a nice stretch across the top of the thigh, the quadricep, and some of the front hip flexors. It's kind of a psoas stretch as well. If holding the bent leg foot works with the opposite hand, fine, but otherwise just tuck it under you and stretch the knee towards the short edge of the mat and move the outside of the knee down towards the mat. It's energetic. It's not that it needs to go there. I can get it there for a nanosecond, but then I'm hyperextending the upper back. And notice too, tailbone lengthens, and as the tailbone lengthens and the side ribs move towards the floor, the bent knee, the under knee will start to move up. So you feel that seesaw principle. So you play that back and forth. Seesaw principle is so important. You push down on one side or engage one side, another part of the body will pull up or pull back or release. So you play it back and forth. And release. Bend both knees. Come into your robot arms and snuggle your shoulder blades back underneath you. Lift your hips and slide the block under your sacrum, either the lowest or medium. Can do the highest, but the highest gets a little tippy sometimes. And snuggle, re-snuggle the shoulder blades underneath you to lift the upper chest. Here we don't have to work so hard. The toes slightly pigeon-toed, just to kind of widen the sacrum a little to help the sacrum get some more space in there. What that does is inner rotate the thigh bones, and they move more to the outside of the hip socket and give the sacrum a little bit of space. And then you can hang here and just enjoy it. Or, of course, you guys know the variations where you can pull up with the thighs straight up and down, the knees right over the hips, not forward of the hips, but right over them, like you fell over in a chair. It's a supported shoulder stand. We don't do full shoulder stand, it just takes too long to set it up properly, and I definitely wouldn't do it online. The legs can be straight, they can be bent. Have to use the core a little bit more. Belly button drops towards the spine as the spine lifts up towards the belly button. As long as you don't collapse the chest. So once the chest collapses, you're starting to work into the back in an unfriendly way. The other version, if you're on the low edge of the block, is to do what I call suspension bridge. Stretch the legs out long. If it doesn't, some people love this, it feels great, and other people it's like, oh, it hurts my back. So that's your volume control. Feet are flexed. You're working the inner edge of the thighs down to the floor, that's in, back and apart, and then lift the chest. You can either do robot arms or the arms long beside you. If it at all pings the back and engaging the legs and lengthening the tailbone does not help, bend your knees and come back to regular supported bridge. And then you begin to move to your final relaxation, whatever that is for you. You can stay in bridge, turning towards the wall, or lock your legs over a couch, or legs up the wall or legs up the couch, or come flat, or do supported fish. But nice, I know a lot of you guys like this one for the morning. I do too. Just keeps me open because I know I'm going to be on the computer too much today. That's my anti-computer back pose. Again, in this one, the knees can stay bent or legs long, but the legs have a little bit of energy and then you just stretch them out, then you can release them. Inner thighs move towards the floor, back of the thighs as close to the floor as possible. The feet are flexed, not a hard flex. Palms up, and then you release and let everything go. And slowly deepen your breath. Or you can always stay there if you want a longer Shavasana. You certainly deserve it. But if you're ready, slowly roll to your side. And find a seated position. And sit well. It's at this point that I really feel grateful for my yoga practice. Sometimes in the middle of it or at the beginning, I'm groaning, complaining, wondering why I'm back on the mat again.
And now I sit here and I say, all right, my body feels like it's all kind of come together. I feel myself again. Draw your palms together in front of the heart center. And I also feel connected because I can practice by myself, but it's just not the same, even with you guys at home, my little squares on the screen. I still can hold on to that shred of community. I love it more when you're here, but I'm so grateful that we have the technology that we can do this together. Namaste. Thank you guys.